Hi, I'm Kendra.
I'm Heather.
And welcome to Matchmakers and Makeup!
Yay!
So what we do on this channel is we show you some cool makeup tricks while we tell our dating horror stories.
And we have some doozies, that's for sure.
And some bloopers for you too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So today we're going to work on more of an 80s look. I'm going to use this, well, we're both going to use this NYX Ultimate Edit as some of our eyeshadow.
And we have a big one too. Oh,
yes.
That one, there you go.
We've also got the Masquerade Mini by Juvia. I'm going to open this because it's got some really cool glittery wild colors. Woo! So 80s.
That's right.
So let's get started, guys. First, I'm gonna go first because my story is, it might take up this whole session, to be honest with you. And it's a little bit of a nail biter, we'll call it. It's a little bit of a horror story. Not a horror story.
Although there might be horror stories later down the road.
Might come later, yeah. So, this is one of the first dates that I had, actually. It was a couple of months ago, and I had gotten out of a long relationship, and I met this guy at church. So,
you would think meeting a guy at church would be the safest way.
Right. I mean, it's not Tinder, so,
right.
I mean, church boys are always pretty good, right? So, he had been talking to me for a while, and I actually met him on Facebook. It wasn't even a dating site, but he was very persuasive, very sweet. We'd gone to the same church for quite a while, and he actually went up during the riots and was helping to board up buildings in Minneapolis, which I was like, oh, that is so sweet.
Right. That's an awesome thing to do.
Yeah,
right.
what a little choir boy, right? Well, we talked on the phone. I told him, hey, you know what? I'm not interested in casual sex. Like, I just want to get to know somebody, like, on a pure level, right? So we go out on our first date. He takes me out for an appetizer first. So we go out for an appetizer and a drink. And after our first drink, we start getting to know each other. And he's telling me stories about, you know, his past, which I'm okay. You know, if you've got a messy past, I'm okay with that because everybody makes mistakes and everybody deserves.
We all have messy pasts.
Exactly. We all deserve a second chance.
I get that.
So the first thing he tells me is, well, you know, I got into some trouble. I'm like, okay, you know, we all get into some trouble. He's like, yeah, mine's a little bit different of trouble. He said, I was in an $80,000 BMW with one of my prostitutes. And I was on a high-speed chase.
One of his prostitutes.
Yeah, one of his prostitutes. I'm like, what?
Okay.
High-speed
chase. Okay.
So, he said the Cedar Rapids Police Department had actually shot him. Not one time, but 3 times. 3 times. Like, shot up the car, shot him up. I thought he was lying. Like, I'm like, am I being punked here? What's going on, right? No. He showed me the YouTube video. It was real. Like, this dude seriously got chased by the police department and shot. And I'm sitting here on a date with this guy. Like, I don't have my car because I was stupid enough to get in the car with him, which, what do I always tell you?
Yes, every time I've gone on a date, she's like, you can't ride with him the first time, you can't do this and that, and she broke all those rules on her date.
Every single one of them.
Every single one.
Every single one of them. So, I'm trying not to act completely shocked at this point, but I'm like, how am I going to get out of this, you guys? I did it. We ended up going to the next place, had dinner. He tells me more. He says, well, you know, I also used to run a prostitution ring. Oh, you did, huh?
And she was there to be recruited. I'm just kidding.
Maybe, who knows? I thought I was going out with a church guy, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
but he's recovered, right?
Yeah, he's recovered.
You think.
So I think, yeah. And, you know, he's been all about, like, helping people at church, and, you know, he was rehabilitated, whatnot. Then he moves on to tell me, well, you know, I did have a domestic... It is hot and sitting. Okay. You screwed up my story.
I'm sorry, go ahead, keep talking.
So then he tells me, well, you know, I did get a domestic abuse charge also for having to hit one of my prostitutes.
Having to hit one of his prostitutes.
He said, well, I was dating the other prostitute, and she was pregnant, but it wasn't my baby. And I ended up having to hit the girl to get her off of the one I was dating. Oh.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right.
Because you hear that a lot. That's like
Yeah.
a typical Iowa story. Yeah.
No, I have never heard anything like that in my whole life. I've never dated anybody like that. I've never been around anybody like that. Maybe I'm sheltered. Maybe this is normal. Is this normal? Guys, is this normal?
Normal.
Okay, maybe not.
No, not at all.
So, needless to say, we go back to his house, and he's like, well, can you come in for a minute? And at this point, I'm like intimidated by this guy. I'm like, is he gonna like murder me? Is he an axe murderer? Is he trying to pit me out? Is he gonna give me a roofie? What?
She's thinking all that, but guess what? She goes in his house.
I did.
Yeah.
I still went in his house.
Yeah, smart cookie you are.
Oh my gosh, I know. I went against every single rule I've ever had, and I go in the house. So he turns a movie on, and this guy falls asleep like instantly. Soon as this dude falls asleep, I grab my heels in my hand. I am just tiptoeing out of this place. Get in my car. I zoom home. He messages me the next day. And he's
course,
like,
right.
He's like, hey, I had a really great time last night. He's like, but I really think that you might have a hard time with my past.
Because you snuck away, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, it like hurt his feelings that I snuck out of the place. Well, dude, you just told me you've been shot by the police on a high-speed chase. You ran a prostitution ring. Oh, and he also told me that he spent 3 years in prison. And you have a domestic abuse charge. No, I don't have any problem with your past
That's
whatsoever.
something you should tell somebody before you go on the first date, I think. Don't you?
Yeah.
I think so.
Or maybe just not tell them ever anything.
No,
I don't know.
No, I give him credit for telling you, because otherwise,
Oh.
what if you dated him for like 4 months and then found out?
That'd be really sad.
Yeah, I'd rather just find out. I give him props for telling you. Oh, but no, keep telling the story though, because it gets great.
Oh my gosh. So then, this wonderful Christian man says, how about you send me some nudes, baby? I'd love to see that. I'm like, we talked about this. I don't do that. Like, I don't do the casual sex thing. I don't, no.
I don't send nudes either.
No.
So, even if I'm with you, I don't send nudes.
No. Like, you can see it in person.
That's right. Come see me.
Yeah, no. But not this guy. I wouldn't show this guy in person either. Like, this guy, like, no. I don't know what happened here, but it's a hard no from me. So anyway, I end up having to block this guy because he's relentless, right? And I felt bad, but I don't really know that he was actually rehabilitated. I mean, what do you think, Heather?
No, I think.
You think that's a hard no?
I think I'm glad you blocked him.
So that was actually my first dating experience outside of my serious relationship in like years.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It was not no. So needless to say, I hadn't gone on a date for a while after that. I mean, that's quite the horror story. I mean, at least I didn't end up dead, right? But coulda.
Going to his house was a huge.
Oh my gosh. Why did I do that?
Because you were, I don't know.
Dumb.
Dumb.
Don't go to anyone's house.
Not on the first date.
Don't get in the car with them
Not on the
either.
first date.
No, never. No, not even on the third date.
Yes, you can go to their house on the third date. I've gone to houses on second dates.
I think you went to the house on the first date.
Did I? Maybe. I don't think so.
Well, you went to a hotel.
Oh yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and tell your story about this this local comedian that you went out with?
Okay, so he'd been on my Facebook for a couple years. I don't even know how we became friends. I think friends of a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
So anyway, but he would always like my pictures and wow and all this stuff. But
Very complimentary.
right, super sweet. He started being more complimentary, right? And then
She laughs.
so he sent me a message and he's like, I happen to know your son. Did I ever tell you? I don't know if I told you. Okay, so he's like, I happen to know your son and I hear you're single. Like, well, yeah, but how do you know my son?
Did he tell you before the date how he knew his son?
Yeah.
And you still went on the date? And she says, I'm the dumb one?
So we went, so anyway, he's like, my son had gotten himself in some trouble, and he's doing well now, but he'd gotten himself in trouble, and he had to serve some time in jail. Well, apparently this dude met my son in jail, and I'm like, okay, wait, what? Why were you in jail? He said, well, my ex was causing a bunch of trouble, and I promise I didn't hit her, but she said I did, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, boy.
And he said, but that's not even why I got in trouble. He said that, the police got called after she said I hit her, but they believed me. He said, but the problem is, while they were there, it came up that he had forwarded a nude picture of her to somebody else.
Oh, my.
And I guess that's like a huge deal. So he had to spend 10 days in jail. And he was doing it separated, like 2-day weekends and 5 weekend increments. So he's like, I met your son, and he was telling me all about you, and your son's such a great kid, and I just couldn't believe what he was in jail for. That's crazy, but I'm glad he's okay now. And he was telling me how you're such a nice woman, and he said, I really think I'd like to get to know you. And so we started talking, because I'm stupid, I guess, right?
It's like jail schmail.
No, right? My son was there. I mean, so we talked, and he was hilarious. He kept me laughing. I mean, and he was this local comedian, right? And, you know, he was always bragging about how he was such a great comedian. He's traveled the world, which is great. He was funny. I'll give him that. So we finally get ready to go on a date, and we talked for, gosh, maybe a month or longer. And I finally gave in to go on a date. And he picked me up in the car. No, he didn't. He came to visit me at my house first. I'm trying to remember the stories. Okay, he came to visit me at my house so I could decide if I was even going to go on a date with him. And all I remember, and I hope he doesn't watch these videos, but all I remember is he tried kissing me, and his head was twice the size as mine.
Was his tongue twice the size of yours too?
Everything was big. Well, not everything. I didn't check the bottom part. But anyway, I just remember his head was being big. And he even said, well, you know, he had hurt his foot or something, and he was like, once I lose weight, my face won't be so fat.
Okay, so he knew he had a giant head.
He was massive. Okay, so after that, I agreed to go on a date. And so we went on a date, and he did pick me up. I was in his car, because that's how we ended up at the hotel. So he
Smart move.
So he picked me up, and I should have seen red flags this whole time. But anyway, he picked me up, and he hands me a shot on the way to this restaurant. He's like, this is this great restaurant. I've made us reservations.
So he's got alcohol in the car.
Right. So, and he's like, well, these are left over from where I used to be an Uber driver, and they were like Fireball shots. He's like, I used to keep them in case people wanted them.
Wow, that's nice of
right,
him.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
So whatever.
Yeah.
So I had the Fireball shot, and we're going, and we're talking on the way, and I'm like, well, what restaurant are we going to? And I dressed up real nice. I looked really great.
Of course you did, right?
We went to this bar. And I'm like, I thought we were going to some restaurant. You made reservations. He's like, well, no, I just know the owner at this bar.
It was like a rinky-dink, like, middle of the nowhere town, too.
Right. And everybody there all that was there was like these old men. So we went in and we sat, and the waitress came to the table, and all he did was, he told her, well, I did a show here once. I don't know if you know my name or who I am. And he kept telling him his name, and everybody that came by, he's like, I came here and I performed once. Do you remember? He said that to everybody. Well, then when he ordered, he was all funky and picky with his food, and he gave her a hard time. It was terrible.
That is such a turnoff, by the way.
It is. Oh,
huge turnoff.
Yeah, I mean, everything. And he's like, well, I really want cottage cheese, and I don't see it on the menu. And she's like, well, I'm sorry. And he's like, well, can you go in the back and see if you might have some?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
One of those guys.
He said that. Guess what? She came back. She's like, we do have cottage cheese. And I really wish they wouldn't have. Because it bothered me. Anyway, so we ate, we talked, we laughed. I had gotten a phone call in the middle of it. Not a phone call, a text. Probably from Kendra to check in on me.
Yeah, to make sure she's not dead.
It really bothered him that I was texting on my phone. Really bothered him. I'm like, I'm just checking in with Kendra to let her know everything's great, you know. And he was so offended. He said, why would you have to check in with your friend? What's wrong with me? And I kept saying, well, you know, girls do that, you know, especially on a first date,
well,
you know,
yeah.
to make sure you're safe, you're not some murderer.
Exactly.
He was so offended. So offended.
Another red flag.
Right. And so at the end of the date, we're getting ready to leave, and then he's up at the bar now talking to everybody there, all these old men, asking them, like, name dropping. Do you know so-and-so and so-and-so? I used to perform here with so-and-so. I mean, it was daunting. So I just I flirted with the old men up there, and, and they kept saying, we don't see girls like you around here often.
I bet they don't. But they don't, girl.
So it was fun. I had more fun with the old men than I did him. So when we go to leave, the plan had been we were going to eat, and then we were going to go to Cedar Rapids to go to
some other comedy thing.
No,
right?
it was a band was playing, like an 80s band.
Yeah.
Some kind of band was playing, and I was stoked. I was excited, you know. And he said, well, you know, I have the hardest time going to Cedar Rapids a lot because people just know me, and they just, you know, crowd me. And he was obnoxious is what he was. But
like he's Jim Carrey or something, right?
But he agreed that, you know, we would go do this. And then he's like, but first I need to go and I need to drop these drinks off, this cooler off that I have with me, because I got a hotel in Vinton. Now, mind you, we had left Vinton and we were, 20 miles towards Cedar Rapids, but he wanted to go back to Vinton and then back to Cedar Rapids. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. Why not just keep him in the cooler? Isn't that the point of a cooler? And he's like, well, no, we'll just drop him off. We'll just take a second.
And who gets a hotel on the
without
first
telling
date?
me? Without telling me. And so I asked him on the way there, and he's like, well, I just thought if I had too much to drink. And I said, but if you had too much to drink, how are you going to get back from the restaurant?
Right,
It doesn't
and why
even
would
make sense.
you be driving the
And if the
car?
and if the band is in Cedar Rapids, none of it made sense.
No.
So,
And she tells me this while she's on her date, and I'm like,
Right.
you need to run.
Right,
Like,
and-
there's red flags, sister.
but then my phone died.
Then her phone died, and I know she's at this hotel.
What? No,
Her
this
phone-
is before. You didn't know I was at the hotel yet.
Yes, I did.
I'm not to the hotel part. So we're driving in the car.
Sorry, I'm bad.
We get to the hotel, and he's like, I'm going to run this stuff in. Do you want to come with me? I'm like, no, I'm just going to sit here and wait for you. So while he goes in, I'm then calling Kendra and telling her what's going on. And I'd also gotten a message from him at the same time saying, oh, well, in a picture from him with a bottle of wine saying, I have this wine in here chilled. You sure you don't want to come in for a drink?
Yuck, dude.
And then I'm telling Kendra all this, and then my phone died.
Yeah. Right in the middle of that, and I'm like, great, this guy has 37 red flags. So she goes up to the room, and there he is, laying on the bed, naked, with a bottle of wine. Her phone's dead, and I'm like, okay, I don't know her phone's dead at this time.
Right,
So I
yeah.
think, like, this guy, like, is a total creeper, and he, like, axe murdered her. Something
happened.
horrible.
Yeah, because, you didn't know my phone was dead yet. You're right.
So I go to this hotel, and I'm like, I'm gonna pick her ass up, because there's something going on here.
Right.
Yeah, well, thank God I did, because there he is with his
He was being
junk hanging out,
he was so
trying to get her drunk into a hotel room.
Yeah. And it was bad. And so I'm a grown woman. I know not to go to a hotel with a man. I went anyway.
Yeah, she did. She went anyway.
I don't even have an excuse.
Nope, she doesn't. No.
But I can say thank you for Kendra.
I came to the rescue!
Because maybe I would be dead now.
Who knows? Who knows?
So he kept wanting to see me after all this. And so he would message me. I mean, he got so weird. He was like, oh, but he at one point he said he wasted his money taking me out to dinner.
He's nasty.
Because
He's nasty.
because I didn't put out, and because I talked to Kendra and I didn't trust him, but mostly because I didn't put out, right?
Yeah. Hello. Terrible date. Terrible guy.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty creepy.
It was bad.
It was bad. So
moral of the story is don't go to a hotel and don't date a guy who has a criminal record and who is a felon. Okay.
right, or don't date people that are more famous in their mind than they really are in person.
So we're gonna go ahead and finish up this look, and we'll be right back with the final product.
Yay, bye.
Okay. Back. This is our final look for the 80s night.
Woo, look at us.
Yes, we used a lot of different colors to make this look happen with the palettes we had showed you earlier. And basically you just have some fun. I put on the pink first, added some purple, added some blue, and then one thing I did not show you guys was this LA Girl gel eyeliner, and that is what we used on our eyes.
Yay, look at that.
So, yes, I think we're ready to go hit the town.
Woohoo!
Maybe have a date, maybe?
With that, I don't know.
I don't know, maybe not. Maybe we'll just...
Not till, yeah.
Yeah, anyway. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed our video, and we hope you also have good vibes, good makeup, and good dates.
Yay, bye.